Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Village of Bartlett Committee of the Whole for May 19, 2026. I ask the clerk, please call the roll.
Trustee Batterman?
Here.
Daney?
Here.
Gansey?
Here.
Hopkins?
Here.
LaPorte?
Here.
Sawanski?
Here.
President Gunstein.
Here. That'll take us to our town hall portion. If anybody is in the audience that would like to discuss anything, please do so by stepping up to the podium, state your name and address. Please try to keep your comments to 3 minutes or less. Anybody? No? All right. That'll close town hall portion. Take us to standing committee reports. Building and Zoning Chairman Hopkins.
Thank you, President Gunstein. We have 2 items on our agenda. I think what we'll do is we'll go to A2 first, if that's okay.
That'll be fine.
I don't want to bore Mr. Bezos into hearing about building code updates. The second item on our agenda is 2026-5, the Horizon Plaza. The petitioner is requesting to rezone 9.74 acres located at the southwest corner of Lake Street and Horizon Drive to allow the construction of a 47,778 square foot building. Unit 1 will contain a showroom of unique cars for display, auction, and museum purposes. The second floor is dedicated to customers, visitors, entertainment with a lounge, bar, kitchen, and video gaming. Unit 2 is for the expansion of the Hyundai and Genesis dealerships' automotive service department. The petitioner is requesting a preliminary, final site, and PUD plan approval, the special use permit to allow planned unit development, the serving of liquor, automotive sales, automotive services, and alterations of wetlands. The wetlands and detention are located on the southeast portion of the property. The rear parking lot is located approximately 195 feet from the south property line. To mitigate the proposed wetlands impact, the petitioner will be re-establishing the landscape buffer on the south side of the property, in addition to the fee in lieu of credits for a portion of the wetlands impact. Staff and the petitioner are negotiating community benefits, such as cost-sharing agreements for the south leg of Lake Street and Horizon Drive intersection, and the vacation of the frontage road adjacent to the existing overflow lot. We are to review this and decide whether we're going to send this to the Planning and Zoning Committee.
I have a quick question. I know like 2 months ago I asked if we ever received the $100,000 donation that was promised on April 16th, 2024 to us to plant trees in Bartlett where we wanted. Did we receive that?
We did not.
I would say that we stopped this discussion. We've been through 3 Arbor Days, and it is listed on the LaQuercio Family Foundation site that it is an environmental initiative that they are beautifying Bartlett with planting trees. It has been over 2 years since we were promised that money.
Yes, can staff follow up on that?
The petitioner is here. You know, it was a gift, a donation, but I'll let them speak for themselves.
Would anyone care to comment on that?
So, board members, my name is Peter Bezos, an attorney from Elgin, and I represent the petitioner. This was mentioned to me by staff maybe a week ago. I frankly don't recall this discussion, but I think Mr. LaCourcio does recall it. He actually had thought that he told me that the discussion involved donating $20,000 a year for 5 years was his recollection. I think Christy may have found some meeting notes that may talk about.
The audio is on.
Is that right? Was it 20,000 for 5 years? Do you know?
No, it was $33,000 over 3 years.
So he thought he had made 2 $20,000 payments. Apparently he hasn't. This is not right. This was something he said. I know he's a man of his word. It isn't in any ordinance. I know he'll follow through with it. In fact, we plan to use a good bit of that money to restore the buffer that we're talking about. Mm-hmm. That are landscaper cut down, even though we had staked it out not to. Yeah, I hear you, Paula. If that's objectionable, you know, we can certainly talk about it. We've got other things to talk about.
Yeah, I mean,
So
I think we
let's-
should continue this conversation and talk about this development, and then obviously, everybody is definitely entitled to vote how they're gonna vote, whether we should forward it on to the Planning and Zoning Commission, but I think that's a separate issue.
I would ask that staff set a meeting with Bob LaCourcio in the near future to get that ironed out so it doesn't become a hindrance as part of this development, this development, should it move forward.
I'm sure we can work with Peter on putting something together.
Any questions about this development that's before us?
So let's turn it over. Christy, do you have any details on this and where we stand with it and what you've seen in your review?
So we have been, like Chairman Hopkins had mentioned, there were some discussions preliminarily on some community benefits for the wetland impacts. There are 2 wetlands on the site located at the south corners of the property as well. The one on the south actually extends along the east property line. In addition to the comments that were outlined in the staff report, we were also looking at improvements to the frontage road along, directly in front of the property. We have some photos. This is the current condition of the frontage of the property.
Is the frontage road going eastbound, is that used for anything?
Going, you mean east of Horizon Drive?
East of Horizon Drive, is that currently being used for anything?
It serves as an access for their overflow lot.
I mean, do we need it as the village?
I'll let Dan.
No, we do not have a need for it, so that's part of the discussions that we've just recently started with the petitioner, where there'd be a potential. Now, we have to look at ownership of the right-of-way and how IDOT gave it to us, so we're looking at that. But part of the thought is, if we don't need it, could that become the developer's area and then improve? Because the one complaint that we've gotten from residents in the area is at Horizon and Lake, if someone tries to make a left, it backs up everything because it's difficult to make that left. So what we're proposing is an improved road section with curb and gutter on both sides of the road with a 3-lane cross-section, which would be a southbound lane off of Lake, a right turn lane onto Lake, and a through left turn lane to help avoid some of that stuff. That would all have to be looked at and engineered, but those are the preliminary discussions that we've had with the applicant.
Applicant express interest in taking that parcel of land over the road?
It sounds like they would be interested if they can use it for parking, additional parking.
Can it be used for parking, or is there an IDOT restriction, setback restriction?
That is what we're trying to look into right now.
The only reason I'm asking is I just noticed in the site plan of the 47,000 square foot building, it seems like there's an absorbent amount of parking on that lot. And I'm just trying to, maybe the petitioner could answer that. What is the reason for so much parking on that lot? Is there a plan to park cars from the other dealer? Usually we're the other way around.
Yeah.
Okay.
Andres Strelkov, RWG Engineering. So the site plan was worked with the ownership to figure out what they were looking for, and when we were looking at parking requirements, we looked at 2 sections of code, which would be storage on the west half, because there really is no specific use that fits that perfectly, and then auto service on the right, which includes 2 parking stalls per service bay, and we counted up any service bay with a lift, detail bay, flap bay, anything that would store a car for service. Then 1 stall per every 2 employees. That works for both sides, and we reached at a little bit over 100 parking stalls. So we're above that at 133. It was not seen as excessively so, because we weren't looking at doubling what was required. So that's how we came up with that number. And then because of the amount of access points to this building, we had parking surrounding it. It wasn't just clustered in the back or clustered in the front, because you have service doors all over the place and cars might have been located anywhere on site.
If I might add to that, the east end of the building, the smaller end of the building is, as was described in the staff report, intended to be used as a museum type and a showroom for both classic and vintage cars. They will, a museum, by the way, is a permitted use in B3, which is the logical classification for this zoning property or this property. Periodically, the LaCourcios would offer host small events with 10 to 20 invited guests and would sell some of the vintage cars. They would also sell some of the classic cars, which are 1950 and forward, the Mustangs and the GTOs, but the vintage cars are the Al Capone type things and older. Village would get sales tax from that. But in any event, part of the answer to the parking, as I was explained by Mr. LaCourcio this evening, was if they get, especially the classic cars, and they have more than they can at one time show in the showroom, they would park them in the rear parking lot. So that's a reason why we need a little extra parking for what's going to be done on site. That parking lot will be very solidly screened.
How many cars would be in the museum? And is the museum, is there a entrance fee? Like anyone can come view the museum?
Well, no, we haven't established an entrance fee. I don't know if they will. I know it'll be largely invited and will generate revenue for the village. But I don't want to rule out that maybe it could turn into a museum. It could possibly be owned by a 501c3 and be operated that way. But the activity would be a museum showroom. There's one in East Dundee that the late Mr. Palumbo established, and he had a mezzanine. This East End would have a mezzanine too, much, much smaller than what Mr. Palumbo did in East Dundee. But there was a serious interest by small birthday parties or business meetings where they would meet there and look at the cars and ooh and ah and whatever people do with cars. And we've asked as part of our application for an ability to get a liquor license, obviously subject to getting a license from you. And for gaming, that won't be how it starts out, but if it becomes successful, that's what would happen. I want to say one more thing too, and I know we don't want to turn this into a public hearing, but it's really logical that this property be rezoned B3. And if it were just rezoned B3, we're asking for a PUD, but there are a lot of uses on this in your B3 district, which include pharmacies and hardware stores and even a grocery store, that the use would be much, much more intense. In fact, the east parking lot, which is the parking lot the parking lot on the land that the village sold us a number of years ago, are you all familiar with that? It's the one that's there. I remember talking with your then village attorney, Brian Mraz, and the village had serious interest from a grocery store. And ultimately, the village decided to sell it to Mr. LaCourcio because it would incent the bringing of his two dealerships in. But so I guess I'm just bringing that up to you because the traffic that will be generated by this project will be so much less than almost, well, not any, but almost many of the B3 uses that could otherwise go there. So anyway.
I would have a couple questions as a follow-up to that.
Okay.
So how do we generate sales tax out of this location? That's what I want to know.
So there will be all the sales, this is accessory to the car dealerships to the west. All the sales of parts, even though they'll be installed on this site, will be sold to the customer through the Hyundai and Genesis dealerships. Parts generate 1.5% sales tax. Any exotic or classic or vintage cars that may be sold there would be sold through the Hyundai Genesis dealerships. They go at 1%, like any other car. And can and I didn't know it would tie in so nicely, Mayor, but your disappointing revenue trip to Springfield, I mean, I just would love to put an over-under bet on when Illinois is going to do what Wisconsin does and start taxing services. And when they do that, we're going to have 10 repair bays on this site, if you approve it, and all that additional service revenue will not only generate more parts sales, but would generate hypothetically then tax on the services.
So I guess my concern is the Honda Genesis dealer currently has a tax incentive attached to it. If we're gonna run this through that location, you're telling me that that tax incentive would be all of anything that's produced and sold and installed in this facility would fall under that. Is that how, am I hearing that correctly?
That's how we anticipate it.
Be the
We
incentive.
don't get 100% though. I think, do we get 50%?
That's a
Until
good-
we hit a cap, and then it's over and you'd get 100%, right?
And my other concern, and correct me if I'm wrong, if you're a 501c, are you exempt from real estate taxes in the state of Illinois in its entirety?
Yes, but yes, if it's a 501c3, it is exempt from taxes if it's used for that purpose, yes. We're not anticipating doing that right away, but it's a possibility.
I mean, that would be, for me, a stop of the project, because we have to have a benefit for the village to do a project of a museum, gaming, whatever it is you want to put in here, and I'm not opposed to it. I think it's a great use. I like museums. I go to the Volo Auto Museum quite often with my kids. I need to know what the benefit for my taxpayers will be. And if you're taking 50% of the tax-generated revenue and running it through for the next 18 years, the Genesis dealer, and eventually going to a 501c, because Cook County taxes are incredibly high, I understand that. The Village of Bartlett gets zero out of this.
So you just talked about both sales tax and real estate tax.
Correct.
The 501c3 only deals with real estate tax. They wouldn't be selling vehicles. I'm just wondering, I mean, I talked to your village council, whom I know and respect greatly. If there's some way, I mean, I have to ask Mr. LaCourcio, I'll certainly communicate your comments to him. The 501c3 is just in the back. He has a family foundation that he set up and gives money to church and charity, and he was thinking, who knows, maybe we could transfer the ownership of this museum at some point. It's not a requirement, and if there's a way we can prohibit it, and if Mr. Asputh thinks there is, and Mr. LaCourcio agrees, and I'll bet he will, we can address your concern.
I share the same concerns.
I'm sure we all had the same concerns. I'm just reiterating them. I
Certainly.
think, I can tell you, I looked at the building. I think it's got a very nice, aesthetically pleasing building. I just thought there was a lot of parking for the use that's being proposed. And are we giving up the potential for a future outlot or some other type of business there with all the parking? Originally, this came forward with potential car wash on the site. Obviously, we no longer have the car wash on there. We now have a larger scale building, has great visibility from the street. I like that. Again, I like the museum idea. I like having the extended service bays over there. What I don't like is the sales tax generated through part sales and being installed in another parcel of land where we have to take a percentage reduction on that. So that's something I think will come up in the public hearing. I'm just letting you know. Aside from that, I think that LaCourcio is a man of his word. I'm sure he'll make right on the commitment he made. I think it's imperative that that frontage road get worked out with staff from Public Works. I think it's an advantage to LaCourcio to inherit that or trade for, because it'll extend his parking at his current parking lot by a lot. I looked at it on Google Earth today, and it's a substantial size. So that's just my position on it. When you say 501c, I can't give up prime property in the Village of Bartlett for 501cs. I just feel that is a bad business decision for our taxpayers. So that's what you scared me a little bit with that, so I think that was why I wanted to question that. And then, and honestly, the running of the motor parts repairs, and even if the state does a service tax, which it's coming, will that also fall under that window of the tax benefit that you got for the Genesis dealer? So,
The vehicle activities are tied to Hyundai Genesis. I would just say, and maybe Christie or Paula or Kurt could confirm this, the discussion at the Planning and Zoning Commission shouldn't really talk about tax sharing agreements. They're land use, but I say that only because I'd love to have a way to discuss with you before we finally come back here.
that's,
Because it's really a board matter.
right. Right now, I think the board is looking at this from the concept review to see if this meets the criteria to move to the next level. So I will pause and I will let any of the rest of the board members,
Yeah, I'm not objecting to this. I like it. I'm concerned about the buffer between the back of the houses and the parking. Also, is there any noise going to be generated from this? Like a typical, like dealership, sometimes they use those intercom systems or?
None.
So that would be a concern of mine if there's any type of noise emitting from the building, but other than that,
Can you tell me who owns the exotic and other unique cars?
Who owns the cars? I don't know whether they're owned by Mr. LaCourcio and his brother Anthony personally, or through one of their entities that they have, or whether they're owned by Hyundai Genesis. I don't know.
Okay.
But they'd have to be sold. You have to have an auto license to sell cars, and the Hyundai Genesis obviously have one. So somehow that would be transferred to the dealership that has a license.
Okay. And the gathering areas on the second floor, where there's a lounge and perhaps gaming and, I mean, is that going to be, is that just a dream for the future, or is that that's something that they're planning on doing right away?
I understand it's going to be done right away because it amenitizes the first floor.
And will that be open to the public right away?
You know, we still have to work that out. Is this showroom museum aspect, is it just open to the public at all times, you know, business hours, 5 days a week? Or might it be by invitation only? I don't know that answer. I don't know. You know, certainly if it were a 501c3, which I can tell we're not going to do, you know, maybe they would have it open at all times. But, you know, I don't know, John, do you have any idea whether it would be open all the time? Do you have any idea whether the exotic car end of the building would be open all the time? Or would it be?
I don't believe that was the intention for it to be open.
I was really excited
So
when,
the exotic portion of it is really not going to generate a whole lot of taxes then? It's going to be the parts and the service from the other side?
That's going to be open all the time.
I was really excited when years ago it was brought up that the plans were the cannabis, there was like, or other ideas for businesses. Like, to me, this sounds more like a very exclusive private club. So I am questioning how much sales tax we would get out of this.
I personally am not opposed to a private museum club type of thing. I've seen it at the Autobahn in Joliet. It's common for exotic car people to show off their cars and stuff. And if a sale comes from somebody who frequented it through a wine tasting or party or something of that nature and says, hey, I want to buy that car, that is a transaction. You know, it's not necessarily, they don't have price tags on them per se.
But it's part of the incentive. That was the sales tax incentive. It's going to get under the umbrella.
It would fall under, yeah. And we'll have to have a discussion with staff at a different
I
date.
like the concept. I would just like to see it opened to the public occasionally.
Yeah, like something,
I
because
think
if you're
people
driving
would
down.
actually, I think there are people who would go and come through it.
I mean, I would go to it quite often with my kids if it was open, or even by appointment only. I can understand that, but,
Yeah.
yeah.
As I
I like the
stated,
concept,
I
too.
can't see why he couldn't commit to having it open at least set hours a day, maybe weekends for that kind of a community participation. I'll certainly bring it up.
And then what are the gaming requirements? Does it have to serve food?
Liquor.
What are the gaming requirements regarding that? Would that require him to have a restaurant?
No, but the pour license is a
Pour license.
requirement for the gaming.
Okay. So I have a question regarding the gaming, and maybe it's a little premature on that. Is that something that would be open to the public, or is that totally encompassed in the museum aspect of it? Just from the gaming standpoint, I know that there's a certain level of gaming activity you need to get the gaming from the vendor. You know, the Gold Rush Gaming, the Lincoln, you can't have them locked up because they're not gonna put their machines somewhere where you can't get at them. So I guess I was just trying to understand that process.
Well, I may know this better than I, but I mean, she's right, we have to have a pour license to have gaming, and so if we had the museum open on weekends for families, but we weren't serving alcohol, then I don't know how that would qualify. So if it turns out that we work this out with you, that we have that facility open, half-time, full-time, whatever, we would have to have the pour activity going on as well, and just not serve minors, obviously, but could minors even go in the place if you were selling liquor? Can minors be in a
The
bar
gaming
with
area would have to be
adults? Yeah.
We're
segregated.
zoned off.
You'd have to segregate the gaming area.
Gaming has to be separate and signed, and there's
Yeah.
a whole list
It's-
of requirements.
It's like a gas station where they have to be separated.
I think there are a number of issues that are still unresolved, and I think a development agreement might be useful to all of us to specify some of these details.
Yeah, I think
Still murky.
I'm pretty confident that the LaCourcio Group and Bezos and Associates can work with staff to come up with some answers to what we've said while you still continue through the, you know, the planning and zoning process. I personally think the building looks great. I think if you're going to put one building on there, I think that's, you know, make it look like it's one building and be done with it. It's, you know, got a nice curb appeal.
So how many cars can be in there?
Say it again?
How many cars can be in there, in the building? Like how large? To give me
I
perspective.
know the square footage of the downstairs, but I can't tell you what that translates into. No, she's talking about exotic cars for show.
On the west side, car storage, 48 stalls are open.
Okay.
Okay. 40.
So do you want, would we want to go through the planning and zoning process if we haven't even ironed out some of these other issues that are very important to us first?
It's like we need to have.
Yeah, I think we should let them continue on, and we'll bring it back to committee and discuss it. And I think if Kurt could send us all the sales tax information for rebates and stuff like that to get everybody up to speed on that. Because if he is going to lump some of that in, I think it was capped at a certain dollar amount, so it's only going to accelerate it, and it'll be over sooner, which would be beneficial, I think. So, yeah, if you could get us up to speed on that, and does anyone think we shouldn't forward this to the planning and zoning?
I thought you said not to forward it to hash out all these.
No.
No, he's saying Trustee Hopkins is saying forward this to the Plan Commission so they can simultaneously go through that process while they work with staff, correct?
Because I think a lot of these issues really don't pertain to the planning and zoning. I think it has to do with the site plan, the building, and the other things as far as the sales tax rebate, you know, hours of operation, things like that, you know? So I think we can hash some of those things out, and I'm sure he's going to get some of the answers, and maybe he'll include it for the planning and zoning, so.
Just to that point to clarify, so the sales tax agreement or any development agreement, those issues, that's really only the purview of the village board. It's not something that would be considered by the plan commission. Yeah.
I just want to add on the site plan, one of the things that is currently shown is the ditch along Horizon. So we're in discussions on curb and gutter. So as far as site plan, that is a change that would have to be implemented in as they move forward. So that's to be determined. The wetlands, there's two wetlands. There's the wetlands that was when the trees were removed, there was wetlands that need to be mitigated for that. And then for the actual site plan, there's additional wetlands, and then they're not factoring in, the ditch line has wetlands, so that would have to also be factored in. So they're proposing a fee in lieu, which we have not really done. So those are all items that need to be worked out in this development agreement, whatever we want to call that, along with that east right-of-way of Horizon, so.
Be involved in those discussions and make the best decision for the village.
It would all come back to the board for approval. So, and I think Matt wanted to clarify sales tax.
Yeah, I do not believe there's a cap on the sales tax. The agreement ends on December 31st of the 18th year.
Christie, did you have anything that was out of the realm of normal, or are we good to send this to the Plan Commission?
No, I mean, beyond what Dan said and what we've been saying that we're negotiating.
I feel confident if you guys are to move this to the Plan Commission and simultaneously work on a development agreement with staff. I'm sure there's a lot of answers that'll be forthcoming, so.
Be anxious to meet with staff, get that going even as the Plan Commission does. And I don't know how many of you know that this same ownership group just purchased the Squeaky G Car Wash. So they are heavily invested in your community and want to be more so. And I assure you we'll work real hard to try and answer these things in a way we can both agree to.
Thank you for
Good. Thank you, guys.
So we'll send this to the Planning and Zoning Commission for a public hearing.
Okay. Thank you, Trustee Hopkins.
We got one more item. But Christie's going to make it quick. So we'll streamline this. Item A1, Building Code Amendment. So with that, I will turn it over to you to give us a quick rundown.
I will go through this very quickly. So the village participates in ISO's Building Code Effectiveness Grading Schedule. Due to the age of the adopted codes that the village has currently, they're all 2018. They were knocking us down a couple classes, which does have an impact on people's insurance rates. So as part of that, we are now recommending that we update to the 2024 model codes. And then while we were doing this, our plan reviewer, building division manager, and our inspectors all looked at some of the other amendments that we have in the code currently to see which ones we needed to modify. We wanted to be able to address the kits that people buy for accessory structures at Home Depot and Menards, so that we kind of say, we'll review it for structural, but they need to follow whatever the manufacturer's recommendations are. Some things are supposed to be removed every year. It's really something that's pretty impossible for us to regulate. So we're kind of putting that back on the residents. You bought the kit, so you're responsible for it. In addition, we wanted to, one of the conflicts we had was with fences, that some of the fence rails, the requirements that were in the code before didn't meet what the fence space, horizontal spacing was when you were actually buying those aluminum fences. And so we were having conflicts with that. We're trying to clean things up so that there's less issues with what residents currently have or what they're planning on purchasing. And we're also doing a reorganization. So right now, all of our amendments are kind of scattered throughout the code, which makes it really hard for builders and architects to track what our amendments are. So this is kind of saying all our fire code amendments are in one spot. All our IRC amendments are in one location, which really streamlines the process for everybody.
Any questions from the committee?
No, I think under the Build Act, those sheds that you can buy at Home Depot could be used as a house pretty soon. So, good thing we're updating our code on that. That's the truth. Granny sheds. All right.
Are you looking to forward this to the,
To the board for adoption.
all right, we will send this to the board.
Thank you,
That's all
Trustee.
we have under building and zoning tonight.
Thank you, Chairman Hopkins. That'll take us to Finance Committee, Chairman LaPorte.
Thank you, Mr. President. We have one item this evening. It is the agenda item phone system. We're looking at the village's current phone system, which is obsolete and no longer supported, To address this, the village issued a formal request for price proposal in September 2025 for a modern cloud-hosted phone system that integrates with Microsoft Teams and supports mobile use. The RFP was publicly posted and several proposals were received and evaluated on a technical merit, vendor experience, integration features, and long-term value. After completing the evaluation, staff recommends awarding the contract to Total Communication Solutions which proposes a Zoom phone system. The system includes desk phones, soft phones, analog support, and training. I'll hand it over to staff for further comment.
This has been budgeted for, correct?
Yes, sir.
How old is our current phone system?
Our current phone system is 7 years old.
7?
Yes. It's a on-premise phone. So before that, we had a POTS line phone system. At that point, we then moved to an IP-based system where we have equipment housed here at the village. It has now since become obsolete, not supported, and I can't get parts for it anymore.
It feels like yesterday I just approved a phone system.
I know.
It can't be 7 years.
I swear it is. It moves quick, and
Yeah, we definitely have, because, yeah, it hasn't been,
I don't think we made the purchase when we discussed it a few years back. It was brought up at one point. I think we tabled that, if I remember correctly.
that was a long time ago.
Yeah. All right.
Any other questions? All right, well, then we'll move it forward for review at one of our future board meetings. Thank you.
Right. All right. Thank you, trustee Laporte. That'll take us to our executive session and motion to adjourn to executive session pursuant to section 2C1 of the Open Meetings Act to discuss the appointment, employment, compensation, or performance of a specific employee. Motion?
So moved.
Moved by trustee Haney, seconded by trustee Solanski. Clerk, please call the roll.
Trustee Betterman?
Yes.
Daney?
Yes.
Gansey?
yes.
Hopkins? Laporte?
Yes.
Swansky?
We are adjourned.